The House of Sand and Fog is one of those movies that, those movies that you'll just keep going back to and you don't know why? Well, this is one of them for me. And it was originally made in 2003, directed by Vadim Perlman, who I didn't know any of his other work. It has 3 writers credited, but some of his other movies, at least one other movie, was Persian Lessons from 2020. Which, as far as I know, didn't get a whole lot of chatter about it, but I haven't seen it. Anyway, so The House of Sand and Fog, it is described as an abandoned wife is evicted from her house and starts a tragic conflict with her house's new owners. A pretty simple setup story. It's starring Jennifer Connelly and Ben Kingsley in absolute top form in this movie. And obviously Jennifer Connelly, one of the most beautiful, gorgeous, amazing human beings to have ever existed. I kind of wish you could have a redo nowadays so we'd have higher definition views of her in her prime. But my God, so this movie was relatively well received at the time. It got a total of 42 nominations during awards season and 13 wins and 3 Oscar nominations. I don't think it won any of the Oscars though. And the Oscar nominations were for Best Actor Ben Kingsley, Best Supporting Actress, the woman who played his wife, Shohreh Aghdashloo, which she won a number of other awards as well. Jennifer Connelly was nominated for some non-Oscars and won at least one of those. I think it was like the Kansas City Guy on Street Corner Award. Later, she would get nominated for A Beautiful Mind for Best Actress and win that one for an Academy Award, back when it actually mattered. So she eventually got it. And of course, she got the most wonderful award of all, the friends she made along the way. And also, she gets to sleep with Vision, so that's a pretty sweet deal as well. It's also got this guy, Ron Eldard, who is a strange-looking gentleman, and I haven't seen him much of anything. I know he was in Super 8 and Black Hawk Down and Sleepers and Deep Impact, a bunch of movies I've heard of and seen but don't remember him from. More recently, he was in what looked like some throwaway movies in 2018, and he had a role in Justified, so that was a relatively big show and well-received show. He was in that Jobs movie, I think the one with Ashton Kutcher, not the one that was written by Aaron Sorkin. But he also hasn't done anything since 2018, so I thought he died, so I went to check. And it turns out he didn't. He might be doing a bunch of stage stuff, but yeah, since 2018 he hasn't been in anything, apparently. Odd-looking gentleman. Anyway, so like I said, the setup of this movie, and there are a lot of things I think that we can learn from this movie. So the setup is that Jennifer Connelly, she owns this house and she owned it with her husband. And her husband left like a long time ago. It was several months ago. He's gone. But she doesn't want to tell her family. She's still grieving about it and trying to figure out what she should do. So she's mostly just depressively moping around, not knowing what to do. In the midst of this depression, she had received notices that said that there were taxes, business taxes owed because the property was being used as a business. This was incorrect. The state had gotten it wrong, or the city, whatever issuing body. So all she had to do was fill out some paperwork and pay $100, declaration fee or recordation fee or something like that, and it would have resolved the issue bureaucratically, and she could have kept the house. It was a house that she had received from her father as an inheritance, that she lived there with her husband. So anyway, like I said, in the midst of her depression, she fails to do this and ends up getting evicted on this technicality, and forcibly evicted. During the eviction, there's this police officer played by Ron Eldard who is sympathetic to what's going on with her, what's happening to her. And so she is evicted with her stuff and meets with a lawyer, and of course the process takes time. Ends up sleeping in her car because she doesn't have money or anywhere else to go and doesn't want to tell her family because she doesn't want to divulge that the marriage has collapsed. So she eventually turns to this police officer who's sympathetic at the scene. Now, in the meantime, you've got Ben Kingsley and his family. He's married to Shohreh Aghdashloo, and they have a younger son who's like early teens. And they live in this lavish, beautiful place. He was a former general in Iran before something had happened that caused them to have to flee the country. So they're used to a certain kind of lifestyle, and they live in this beautiful apartment that has all of the trimmings they've come to expect. But this is one of the things that stood out to me when I was a kid when I initially saw this. is he will go to work in the morning. He goes to his job, and it's this just base construction job where you work very hard hours, you get disgusting and dirty, and it's very taxing physically and mentally. So he'll go do this job, and you can tell he's been doing this for a long time at this point. And before he goes home every day, he will go to a restroom, and he will clean himself up, with paper towels, and change himself into a suit, and make himself look really nice and presentable as if he's working some more gainful and appropriate job, and then he'll go home in the suit all cleaned up, just so his family will think that they're still fine, they're still in that echelon of society. And to me, this is something that, because it's unheralded, he doesn't get to complain about, how hard work was, or that he has to work construction after being such a lauded profession back in his home country. He just has to suffer that and do it every day, day after day after day, to be able to take care of the family. Now, because he's making construction money and they're living in this kind of an apartment, he has to come up with a plan and figure out, okay, for the family, this is what we have to do. We're going to buy a house that's gone into foreclosure that's really cheap. We're going to live there just for a few months, and in the meantime, fix it up and then put it back on the market, make a killing on it, and then move on from there and do what I can do to get our family back to that status. So, obviously, these two threads converge, and you've got Ben Kingsley, who finds this house that's being sold for a fraction of what it's worth because it's a foreclosure. He buys the house. He informs the family that this is what's going to happen. We're moving out of here. We're going to this house it's by some water. It's got some beautiful views, but it's much smaller and much less heralded than the house or the apartment that they live in now. The wife is absolutely livid about it. She's unhappy about it. They get into a row, and it doesn't go very well. And this is another thing in the movie that they treat in an interesting way, is that they're from a different culture wherein she has to defer to the husband, and that's just the way it is. He's going to make the decisions, and they get into a conflict, and she says, no, I don't want to do this. You're screwing everything up. You're horrible. I don't want to move into this stupid house. And he hits her. He slaps her in the face. So sensibility-wise, obviously from our cultural perspective, which is the correct one, is that you obviously shouldn't be hitting women, physically striking women to cause harm or to put them in their place or for any other reason. So that being the case, it puts us in this perspective of sympathy where we are balanced all the way through when it comes to both characters. That's one of the best things about the movie, is that both of them, you understand their points and you get pissed at them. Jennifer Connelly gets really, really annoying at certain points. And so does Ben Kingsley. They both act like idiots at various times, but you understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So Ben Kingsley, he gets his family over there. His wife accepts it and says, okay, yes, I lashed out before, but I accept that this is the decision for the family and this is where we're going to be. He goes and apologizes to his son and says that, I'm sorry, that should have never happened. That's not the kind of thing that I should be doing to your mom. That's not the kind of thing that you should be doing. So even in that, it could have been a little more severe in the interpretation. Like if he just hit her and then left it at that and didn't apologize to anybody, then it would have taken him a little more in that direction. But he does go and apologize and say that it was the wrong thing to do. So anyway, to me, this is based on a book. And to me, you have this balance now. You have this Jennifer Connelly character. Her husband left. They're supposed to be in this close, fulfilled marriage, and she's supposed to be close with her family and open with her family and all of that, but she's closed down, she's embarrassed, and it's caused a number of problems. On the other side, you've got Ben Kingsley, who, because of things that he did, they had to flee their home country. And so you've got a family that is worried about whether he's making the right decisions for them, and he's got to take them in the right direction, so he's trying to make the right decisions in this context. And then Jennifer Connelly is reaching out now to this cop character who is strange looking, number one, but she's reaching out to him trying to find some kind of port in a storm because she doesn't have any other choices, and the only option she has is her sexuality as a marketable trait to be able to do this. So he swoops in, the cop character, and in this context you would expect, okay, there's a white knight that comes in that is going to protect somebody who is vulnerable, and then they ride off into the sunset. So you've got the cop character who comes in and he says, you know what, I'm going to get you a hotel at least, and you can stay there. He's married to the actress, not married to the actress, but the actress is Kim Dickens, who plays the wife. gorgeous blonde woman, and they have 2 kids together. So it's significant. It's significant for him to engage in this undertaking, and Jennifer Connelly, as the character, is trying to do everything she can to just survive on her by any means that she can, even if it means playing house with this cop character who has a wife. So he is telling Jennifer Connelly that, yes, I'm not interested. I'm not attracted to my wife anymore. I'm not interested in that. I want to get out of the marriage. I want to find somebody else. Now, if Jennifer Connelly is standing before me saying, "Oh yeah, no, we can totally do this. You want to help me out?" I understand the temptation in that situation. Now, obviously, I would not undertake it. I would steel myself against those kinds of temptations unless she was holding In and Out and said we could spend the night talking about Nietzsche or something. Okay, that would make it really, really tough. But in this situation, you understand Jennifer Connelly, one of the most beautiful women in the history of the world, who is vulnerable and in need of care. So he does that, and they end up hooking up, all sorts of sordid activities. And of course, it's always important to point this out whenever we talk about any of these movies. Yes, there is nudity. So now she has this cop who's the White Knight, and he is going to Ben Kingsley and trying to get him to sell the house back to the county or whatever for the price that he paid for it. Jennifer Connelly had tried a number of things before this, like she went there at one point, and oh yes, this was actually kind of an important scene. She goes on site of the house and sees that there's construction being done. He wants to put in this terrace area so you can have a better view overlooking the water, and it's going to increase the value of the house dramatically. So she goes and she steps on this board that has nails in it and blood everywhere. She gets taken into the house, and his wife, the Shohreh Aghdashloo, cares for Jennifer Connelly. So this is the first crack in the harsh, vicious facade that Jennifer Connelly's character has been putting up. Because now she's being cared for by this person who took her house away, and it's like she doesn't even speak English. So it's this really visceral means of showing care and support, and something that Jennifer Connelly really feels like she's missing at this point. So eventually, Ben Kingsley and Jennifer Connelly butt heads because she's showing up when he's trying to sell the house, and she's saying that it's stolen, and so there's a lot of hysterical stuff going on, and it's making things harder for his family. But the cop guy, Ron Eldridge's character, shows up, and he says, he's telling Ben Kingsley that he can't put signs up in certain places, and he'll be fined, and you need to sell the house back to the county or state or whatever for the price that you paid for it. Even though, obviously, now the house is worth way more, and you put money into it. So, again, you see both sides of what's going on. So obviously this is an overstep by a police officer. You don't get to do this, go in and threaten people with the air of your official office to benefit some hot brunette girl who you just met. You don't get to do that kind of thing. So it gets reported to the department, internal affairs or whatever. Wait, is that the show, or is that what they actually... Wasn't there a TV show at some point? Was it called Internal Affairs? I don't remember. Anyway, so now you've got these dramatic elements that are being enhanced from every angle because they're investigating this officer for misconduct, which has escalated. Jennifer Connelly is not getting anywhere with her attorney, who's telling her that it's going to take months, and all you had to do was sign this paper and, pay your tiny bit of money, and you would have been able to keep your house. So Jennifer Connelly is blowing up in this and figuring out there's nothing I can do. Ben Kingsley's trying to sell this house, but he has somebody who keeps showing up, and cops who keep showing up, who are screwing everything up for his family, while he's got other family coming in to visit, and he's trying to maintain the airs that they're doing fine. And the son is just in the midst of everything. So eventually, Jennifer Connelly gets to a point where she's just had enough once the cop character says that his friend has a cabin out in the woods somewhere, and they can stay there for as long as they need to. So they go to the cabin, and it's not a great place, but Jennifer Connelly's trying to make it work. And Jesus Christ, I don't know how many times I could say this or how much it's going to impact people's views on the movie, but Jennifer Connelly is so good. I know I haven't gotten to this point yet, but Jennifer Connelly is so good at acting all these various situations with these different people. She is so committed to this role at every moment of this movie. It's amazing to watch. Now, it doesn't take her a whole bunch of extreme directions. She doesn't have to do anything that's super complex with this character, but she is totally committed and absolutely so much fun to watch every time she's on screen. So anyway, they're out of this cabin that sucks, and he's like, he gets a call from somebody, and he says, I have to go back to my family to figure something out. Something's come up. And so Jennifer Connelly's worried that he's never coming back. She's trying to play house at this point. And she's cleaning the place up, trying to make the best of it, and realizes, okay, I have something at least, even though everything else is being taken away from me. I have something. The police officer leaves and goes back to the wife and finds out about the investigation that's going on, and he has to go into the Office of the Internal Affairs now to answer for the things that he's been doing. So he can't go back to the cabin. And so Jennifer Connelly doesn't return back to the cabin. So she says, okay, well, I've lost everything now. I can't even keep a, corrupt cop on the line with my super hotness. So that being the case, I just have to take drastic measures. And she goes to a gas station and buys 2 gas cans and fills them up. Gets a bunch of alcohol. She was an alcoholic. This is another thread of the story. And drives over to the house with a gun and the cans of gas and all the alcohol that she proceeds to imbibe pretty abruptly. And then she attempts self-deletion, but the gun is not working in the way that she needs it to. Ben Kingsley notices that she's sitting out in the car near the house and goes out, grabs the gun, stops her, takes her into the house because he realizes how drunk she is. And then his family proceeds to provide care to her again and try to get her to throw up to get this stuff out of her body. She tries to take pills to self-delete. And the wife character, again, who doesn't speak any English, is doing everything that she can. The son character is doing everything that he can. Ben Kingsley just has this air of it is our duty to try to help somebody who's in need, whether she's been a complete dickhead to us historically or not, and whether we have legal issues that are going on with her, it doesn't matter. We just have to protect this person and help this person if we can. So now you're going through this, and this should have been the end of the movie. Right now should have been the end of the movie. The cop gets kicked out of the force, and they save Jennifer Connelly and figure out some way, maybe she stays with them for a little bit to recover and they become friends or something. Something like that. That should have been the end. But instead, it goes on into maudlin territory where it is just baiting the hell out of award season. And it stretches your credulity at this point. So if it had stopped here, it would have been one of those great movies that should have been on lists and people watch all the time and talk about and remember. Because it's a nice, simple story about 2 families that are broken in different ways. They come together and they figure out a means of working things out. That's what it should have been. Instead, the cop shows back up to the house, and he understandably is not sure what the hell's going on. He goes into the house and finds Jennifer Connelly is unconscious or barely conscious, and they are carrying the body. So it's like, okay, yeah, I get it. I get it that you're a little suspicious of the circumstances right now. But then it just gets stretched out because she even wakes up and is saying like, no, don't, they're fine. They're trying to help me. I was trying to self-delete and all of that. But he just goes off the absolute deep end. I understand that he just got told that he's being investigated or whatever and probably is going to lose his badge. But now he goes into kidnapping and trying to get Ben Kingsley. Ben Kingsley comes up with the idea of, okay, well, I'm going to resell the house back to the county or whatever for the amount that I paid for it. I'll give you the money, and then you sign the house over to me. I'll sell the house for a profit, and that saves my family, and you get some money, like 40 grand or something out of it. So everybody wins something at least. And the cop's like, all right, well, we'll go do that. And so he's going to take them at gunpoint to the bank to get this process taken care of, the son and the father. And then it just gets incredibly stupid where the son grabs they get into like a struggle, and the son grabs the gun and points it at the Ron Eldridge character, the police character, the officer character. And then some other police show up and point their guns at the kid, and the kid turns like an idiot. And it's, it's a kid. What is he going to do? He turns like an idiot toward the police, and the police shoot the kid. And then it's like, oh, come on. Yeah, that was way too much, way too much. Ben Kingsley does everything that he can with this situation. Like I said, it's really maudlin and over the top. And this moment is probably why he won a bunch of Best Actor awards and got nominated for an Oscar and all that stuff. But it was definitely way over the top at this point. So he gets arrested and then released, and then he runs, and there's this whole moment. He's running with his arms outstretched, covered in blood, to go try to save his son and make sure his son's okay. The son passes away, so it's this complete, devastating, destructive moment that kills the family, and the end of it is Ron Eldridge's character ends up in jail, obviously, for a very long time. Jennifer Connelly is standing at the house, the site of where all this stuff happened, and in the first shot that you see in the movie is this scene, is where she's standing here with police about to ask her questions. And the last shot is the same thing where they're about to ask her questions and they ask her, is this your house? And she says no. So, you've got that framing. But anyway, yeah, that's the whole movie. Like I said, before the end, it's great. I really, really enjoy it. I think it's excellently done, and there are a couple of things that are holding it back. One of them might be on purpose. So one of them is Ron Eldard. I do not think he has the acting chops to stand with Jennifer Connelly at all. It was kind of a disservice to her to have him opposite her. There's something about his delivery that's so boring and just doesn't have the subtext or complexity that other actors can bring to this kind of a role. And I think the point was to cast somebody who was not the male savior kind of character. He had to have a little bit of seediness to him. Later in the movie, Ben Kingsley's character talks about how this is a weak man. And it is a weak man. It's somebody who's not taking care of his family anymore. He has kids, he has a wife, so that he can go sleep with another one. And then when he tries to help the other one, he does it in such stupid ways that it ruins everybody else's life. So it's a very weak man. And Jennifer Connelly, she was at a very low point, so she was just taking whatever help she could get. So it might have made sense to cast him as this character because he looks a little seedy, a little shady, and is not fit for that savior role. So I understand that. I just wish it was somebody who was more interesting as an actor. I really just didn't see much to his performance, especially when he's with Jennifer Connelly and she's got fireworks going off in how she's performing and the commitment to her character. And every time he has to deliver a line, it's just like, I'm falling asleep. So I don't know. I didn't like that casting all that much. And then, like I said, the ending was just way over the top and way maudlin. So, why do I want to talk about this movie? Why am I bringing it up? Why did I just describe the whole damn thing to you? What was the point of any of that? I really think that it's interesting to look at the way men should be operating in families. What happens in the beginning? We have Jennifer Connelly, who's abandoned by her husband, and she is devastated. And there's something that was very minor that could have been fixed if they had remained together, if they had paid attention to the things that were going on. And obviously she got this thing from this house from her father. It was left to her by her father. So she had that this hole related to her relationships with men is a giant gaping hole at this point. She has a house, but it's an empty one. It doesn't have the head of household that would historically have been the case. On the mirrored side, you have Ben Kingsley, who is the head of household in a cultural context that brings you back to more traditional ideas of what men and women are supposed to be. Ben Kingsley is the archetypal man in a bad situation. It's somebody who was a general back in his home country, who was undermined by corrupt officials and ends up in America just to run into more corrupt officials. But the point is that the guy is doing everything that he can to protect his family in the way that he thinks that he should, and it gets undermined by weak men, corrupt weak men who are grasping for things they shouldn't be grasping for, no matter where he goes. And the victim, of course, is his son. Even though when it comes to the moral calculus of the movie, he shouldn't have had to pay for any of that kind of thing. If anybody should have had to pay, it would have been Jennifer Connelly, because she was the one who enlisted such a weak man to try to get something back that she may have been entitled to, but still. It was the fact of she had this gaping hole of what she should have had in a husband and a father who passed away. Those things are gone now. And so what do? I turn to somebody who's weak, who's going to be a straightforward means of trying to get something or accomplish something. And it cost the real family, that's across the way, who is in that house, the house that's supposed to be mine, that's what I'm supposed to have, that healthy family. I'm not supposed to have this Frankensteinian version of a family with a weak man who's not capable of protecting one or doing the right things. I don't think it's a coincidence that Ben Kingsley's character was a general in his country and Ron Eldard, the officer character, is playing something akin to the state representation of force. And both of them are corrupt, and both of them are costing all of the families involved a tremendous amount. Hey, future me. While I was editing, I was just thinking about something, and I think it's important to get across this idea related to the ubiquity of bureaucratic corruption. So you see, at multiple levels here, we've got, number one, you have this little paperwork-related error that causes Jennifer Connelly's character to lose her house, which is pretty significant. You've got something happens in Iran that is implied to be related to the government there causing Ben Kingsley's character unjustly to have to flee. Then when Ben Kingsley, he relies on this bureaucratic system in the United States to try to buy and fix and resell this house, he is visited by a corrupt cop in the United States who tries to use bureaucratic methods and an unjust application of the force of government to cause problems for Ben Kingsley. And then at the end, you've got the cops who do the incorrect, you might say it was a justified shooting in the situation, but it was definitely the incorrect thing morally and given the circumstances, etc. So again, it was a corruption of the force of government. Now, all of that throughout the movie is weighed against the dynamics of family and the intact family versus the not intact family, and how they're both navigating this corrupt world of government and bureaucrats. So there's something in that. There's something in the idea of when family goes up against the ersatz family of government. Because essentially that is what government is trying to do. It's trying to be the provider of familial support or the executor of familial authority where there is or is not a family. So again, there's something in that idea when it comes to this movie. And the book, I'm assuming, that underlies it. So anyway, I just wanted to add that before I put this thing out. Thanks. So it goes without saying, Ben Kingsley, I haven't talked about his acting enough, but he's a very good actor, and he really crushes it in a lot of the more subtle scenes as you go along. He can be very annoying and frustratingly terse and harsh with a lot of the female characters, but obviously that's part of what's built into it. He can also be extremely thoughtful and affectionate to his family. And you see the weight of all the decisions that he's having to make related to all of these circumstances. Now, it could have been the case that, the son had to be the cost at the end of this to show the cost of weak men in positions of authority or power, or in families in general. But still, like I said, it got so maudlin. There was a better way to have those circumstances play out. Even if it was just an accidental shooting because the stupid cop character is pointing the gun one way or trips or who knows, whatever else. Or they get into a shootout with some criminals who happen to show up to rob them. I don't care. It was just so stupid to have the kid, he's holding a gun. And he's not going to understand that when he's holding a gun and some police show up that he needs to drop the gun. He's not going to understand that. He's going to turn towards them. I don't think that that's what's going to happen. I also don't think that the other two characters are not going to, call out what's going on in some capacity. Like, when the cops roll up, there are two characters who are fighting with each other, and the kid, which is obviously a kid, is pointing the gun at the two characters. And so it's just like, I don't know, that's one of those things where it just seems so over the top and manipulative to try to get to the point of doing something Oscar baity. Anyway. But overall, the important thing to take away from this movie, I think, is what I talked about when it comes to families and this mirrored version of families and how they operate and what happens when you have weak men using the power of state to affect families that are trying to function, broken or otherwise. So it's a really interesting movie to me. Jennifer Connelly was great. Ben Kingsley was great. A lot of the writing is really enjoyable. And I wonder what everybody else thinks about this movie if you've seen it. Again, this is 2003. Very timely thing to be talking about. But anyway, I hope you had something came from watching it if you did. Otherwise, subscribe if you would. And I will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.